Λοιπόν, καταρχήν θα ήθελα να σας καλωσορίσω σήμερα στην παρουσίαση με την ευκαιρία της ετήσιας εκστρατείας του Ευρωπαϊκού Μήνα Κυβερνοασφάλειας, το γνωστό ECSM, σε εμάς γνωστό, της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης για την προώθηση της ασφάλειας στο διαδίκτυο μεταξύ των πολιτών. Η ετήσια εκστρατεία ευαισθητοποίησης διανύει τον 9ο χρόνο ζωής της και προωθεί ενέργειες για επικαιροποιημένες συστάσεις για την κυβερνοασφάλεια με σκοπό την οικοδόμηση εμπιστοσύνης στις διαδικτυακές υπηρεσίες και την υποστήριξη των πολιτών όσον αφορά την προστασία των προσωπικών, οικονομικών και επαγγελματικών τους δεδομένων στο διαδίκτυο. Να καλωσορίσουμε όλους τους συμμετέχοντες σήμερα. Να πω ότι την παρουσίαση σήμερα υποστηρίζει το ΚΕΒΕ. Υπό την αιγίδα του Επιτρόπου Επικοινωνιών, η παρουσίαση θα γίνει σήμερα από τους καλούς μας συνεργάτες από το Cyberdyuc Research Center του Ευρωπαϊκού Πανεπιστημίου Κύπρου. Είναι ο Γιώργος Χατζηχρήστοφη και η Γιάννα Δανίδου. Αμφότεροι είναι ειδικοί στον τομέα της ασφάλειας των κυβερνοχώρων και οι δύο διδάσκους του Ευρωπαϊκού Πανεπιστημίου Κύπρου. Χαιρόμαστε πολύ που είναι καλοί μας συνεργάτες και σήμερα θα σας αφήσω στα πολύ ικανά τους χέρια να σας κάνουν navigate στον κόσμο του awareness raising. Γιάννα.
Καλημέρα και από εμάς. Χαίρομαι πάρα πολύ για την ευκαιρία που μας έχει δοθεί να παρουσιάσουμε στο ECSM. Η κυβερνοασφάλεια είναι ένα πολύ καυτό θέμα το οποίο αφορά όλους, όχι μόνο τα άτομα, δηλαδή τους individuals, αλλά και τις επιχειρήσεις και σήμερα θα προσπαθήσουμε να δώσουμε έμφαση στο θέμα των μικρομεσαίων επιχειρήσεων. Πριν ξεκινήσω, το όνομα μου είναι Γιάννα Δανίδου, είμαι λέκτορα στην κυβερνοασφάλεια στο Ευρωπαϊκό Πανεπιστήμιο Κύπρου, στο οποίο επίσης ηγούμε του μεταπτυχιακού που αφορά την κυβερνοασφάλεια. Μπορείτε να βρείτε περισσότερες λεπτομέρειες στη σελίδα του Ευρωπαϊκού Πανεπιστημίου Κύπρου. Χαίρομαι πάρα πολύ που είσαστε μαζί μας σήμερα. Βλέπω ότι αυξάνονται οι συμμετοχές. Θεωρώ ότι κατά τη διάρκεια της ημερίδας μας σήμερα θα έχουμε περισσότερα άτομα μαζί μας. Θα πρέπει να μεταφερθώ στην αγγλική, διότι το σεμινάριο σήμερα θα είναι στην αγγλική γλώσσα, προσφέρεται ίσως και για αγγλόφωνους ή αλλόγλωσσους, οπότε I will have to switch to English. Before I start, let me give you a brief introduction of who we are. We have established recently, since 1.5 years ago, the Cyberdyuc Research Center. So this research center is seeking to enhance academic understanding and also to strengthen the strategic and the practical capability. What is our actual vision is to become a world-class reference center, like an excellence hub for cybersecurity science and also application and other related digital transformation applications with an emphasis not only in Cyprus, but also regionally. We have 4 pillars of services. First and foremost is the research. We already participate in many national, EU, and also private research projects. As you know, in particular, European funded research projects are quite competitive to gain. However, we already participate in a number of those, and we would like to also expand and create a more vibrant ecosystem for research in Cyprus and the southeastern Mediterranean. The second pillar is with regards to education and training. Apologies, I have a chat here that says, sorry, give me a second because I see that there is a problem with my presentation. Are you able to see the presentation or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Nelly, do we have an issue?
The issue is with the live feed. We'll try and sort it out. Please continue. Apologies for interrupting.
Okay, perfect. So our second pillar is related to the education and training. We already run, as I said earlier, the Master in Cybersecurity, which is quite popular, I must say. It attracts a lot of students, not only from Cyprus and Greece, but also from Europe. We concentrate in high quality teaching, and we also provide training, sometimes tailor-made according to the needs of the clients. So training is also something that we pursue under the Cyberdyuc. The third pillar is consultancy. So we assist private and also governmental organizations to effectively manage cyber risks. These services span across the finance sector, insurance sector, hospitality, and tourism. And we also have the fourth pillar, which is entrepreneurship. We aspire to liaise with the innovation and other incubator activities of the university and also Cyprus in general, and also actively stimulate the knowledge and the technology transfer for global commercialization. To do so, we have a very strong team. I am the director, along with Professor Paul Timmers, Professor George Metagidis, who have a lot of experience in terms of digital transformation, since they have been part of the EU Commission for many years. Dr. George Hadjikristofi, who is also with me today, who is an instructor, an assistant professor, if I'm not mistaken. George will correct me if I'm wrong, on network security, and the chair of the department, which is Dr. Marina Apiou-Nikiforu. We also are present in social media. You can follow us using these two links if you would like to get more information on Cyberdyuc. And you can find also more information on our newly established website, which is cyber.euc enterprises, on their struggle to survive. And one of the solutions that most SMEs have resulted to is to being digitized, create online shops, or find other ways to digitalize their operations in order to survive. Now, this particular seminar today will attempt to shed light on the most important concepts and definitions with regards to cybersecurity, the different attacks, what is a digital footprint, how a digital footprint is related to small, medium enterprises, because there is a misconception at this point that digital footprint is only created by individuals, which is entirely not true. And we will provide the best practices on how to secure small, medium enterprises. Now let's see some statistics. This is a statistic, a global statistic from January 2021, showing that around 60% of the population are using the internet, and also 53% of the population is active social media users. This shows the huge usage of social media by the population. Now, as you already know, data never sleeps. We have this very to the point statistics from 2020, which shows what happens every minute of the day. If you allow yourself 1 minute to go through these statistics, which are included in this very nice graphic, you will see staggering numbers, like, for example, that consumers spend $1 million online per minute. So you can understand how many millions are spent during a day from consumers that use online or e-commerce systems. There are also various other statistics that you can see here and can be of use according to the sector that your small medium enterprise is dealing on. Now, let's come to data breaches. Data breaches are a huge problem, not only nowadays, but in particularly nowadays. So we have hackers that attack every 39 seconds on average 2,244 times a day. Data breaches exposed up to today in 2020, 36 billion records, only for the first half of 2020. And also the average annual security spending is $2,691 per employee, which means that you need to actually invest in cybersecurity if you don't want to be in this unpleasant position of being attacked. How much does the worldwide cybercrime cost? It has been estimated for 2021 to hit 6 trillion annually. So you can understand again the huge numbers that cybercrime costs businesses. And now the most important question, whether you and your businesses are at risk. I know that many small, medium enterprises directors or CEOs are with the impression that they do not belong in the high risk category. I must say that this is not true at all. From the very first moment that you start using or processing sensitive information or personal data, which are also accessible by your employees, you are under cyber attack risk. So you need to be very careful and pay as much attention as possible, and also invest in cybersecurity in order to gain the required security for your organization. So the most important problem that we face when we try to pursue CEOs or others to invest in cybersecurity is the so-called return on investment. So as you know, when a CEO or a director invests a particular amount of money for something, this can be an advertisement, social media posts or whatever, you are expecting a return on investment, which is something tangible. You will be able to see the return in terms of money coming back into your organization. Now, this is not the case in cybersecurity, and this, I must admit, is one of the most important aspects why organizations do not value cybersecurity and do not invest in cybersecurity, because they do not see a return on their investment. You will not see money coming back from security products that you will invest into, or the cybersecurity employees you will have to employ in your company. What you will see, on the other hand, is that you will not be penalized because, for example, you have not followed GDPR rules or security, and you have not been data breached for, let's say, 2 or 3 years, for as long as you have a good cybersecurity expert in your organization. So this is the return on investment you need to expect in terms of cybersecurity, and not a monetary value coming into the budget of your organization. Now let's proceed into a very important notion of what is cybersecurity. And what is security? So we have cyber and security, which is security online. Now, security is a state. Keep this word because it is important for you to understand that it is not something that you can achieve at once and stay safe. It is a state because it is changing nature. So it is a state of being secure and being free from danger or harm, and also the actions that are taken to make someone or something, in this case it can be your entire business, secure. Now, when we say that we need security in an organization, we don't just mean security in terms of information security, but we refer to multiple layers of security, as you can see in the list on this slide. So we refer to operation security, physical infrastructure security, people, functions, communications, and information security. So bear in mind that when we say about security, we don't refer only to information security. Now, we need to protect the information and also the critical elements of those information, including the systems and the hardware that we use, that we store, and that we transmit information. Here you can see the different stages of information, the usage, the storage, and also the transmission. We will refer to in the next two slides about the very famous CIA Triad, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, which is a standard based on these three critical elements, which is the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, which of course is now viewed as inadequate in the sense that we have to add other critical characteristics of information as well and expand this very basic model. Together, these three principles form the cornerstone of any organization security infrastructure. And in fact, they should function as goals and objectives for every security program. The CIA Triad is so foundational to information security that any time that we have a data leakage, a system is attacked, or a user takes a phishing bait, an account is hijacked, or a website is maliciously taken down, or any number of those security incidents occur, you can be certain that one or more of these principles are being violated. Confidentiality refers to the organization's efforts to keep their data private and also secret. In practice, it's about controlling access to data and preventing unauthorized disclosure. This also involves ensuring that only those who are authorized have access to specific assets, and that those who are unauthorized are actively prevented from obtaining access into your systems. As an example, we can think of that only authorized employees in the organization have access to the payroll system and the payroll database in your organization. In everyday usage, we refer to integrity, and actually we refer to the quality of something being a whole or being complete. The InfoSec integrity is about ensuring that data has not been tampered with and therefore it can be trusted. We must assure that those information are correct, they are authentic, and they are reliable. And this is extremely important in the cases of e-commerce, where we expect that the product and the pricing information, which we list on our e-commerce website, are accurate, that they are available, and also that they are correct in terms of accuracy. In the same sense, we can refer to banking customers that need to be able to trust that their banking information and also their account balances have not been tampered with. We also have systems, applications, and data which do not have much value to the organization and the customers if they are not accessible. And to do so, we need to make sure that only authorized users access those information. So availability means that we have the networks, the systems, and the applications up and running. It ensures that we have authorized users that have timely, reliable access to resources when they are in need. Apologies, let me see, I have received. Let me stop sharing. I don't seem to be able to find the stop sharing option.
Then
Mhm.
put the cursor above the
Yeah.
screen. Maybe
There
when
is
you
no
push it up,
menu.
it pops up.
There is no menu. So let me.
Αν πιέσεις τον cursor πάνω, στο πάνω μέρος της οθόνης εμφανίζεται.
No.
Pinelli can.
Let me try and reassigning you as a presenter.
Okay, let's do it this way. Is there any change, Nelly?
You're reassigned as a presenter. Have you tried stopping your sharing mode,
doesn't allow me.
restarting sharing?
It doesn't allow me to stop sharing the file. If I share my screen and then stop sharing, it brings me back to the file. So I cannot stop sharing this file. I don't know why.
Okay, all right.
Also, Nelly, I see some messages. Bear in mind that I cannot read them while I share. I mean, I cannot see the chat.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so let's move on. Apologies for this short.
Jana, I see the slide 15. What are you showing right now?
Yes, slide 15. Now I go to 16.
Okay, good.
See that?
Yes, we can see slide 16.
Perfect. Okay, so here we can see the CIA triad that we have been discussing a bit before on the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. I repeat that confidentiality is protection from unauthorized access, unauthorized use, disclosure, and then we have protection of data that are in transit and in process. When we refer to integrity, we mean that we detect possible alterations that have been occurred in storage, in transit, and in process. And we refer to availability when we would like to refer to controls on unauthorized access, acceptable level of performance, fault tolerance, redundancy, reliable backups, and also prevention of data loss or destruction. In this slide, you can see some of the critical characteristics of information. As I told you before, the CIA triad is no longer adequate, so we need to add more characteristics in order to increase the value of information. And the value of information comes from the characteristics that it possesses. We refer to availability, confidentiality, integrity, as I have mentioned before, but we also have accuracy in the sense that we need to make sure that our data are accurate, they are free from mistakes or error, and they do have a value that the end user expects. When we refer to authenticity, we refer to the quality or the state of being genuine or original. We would like the information not to be fabricated. This is what we refer to when we mention authenticity. Then we have confidentiality and integrity that I have mentioned extensively before. We move to utility. This is the quality or the state of having value for some purpose or end. The information has value when it serves a particular purpose. This means that the information is available, but not in a format meaningful to the user, and therefore it will not be useful. This is the utility characteristic. And the last one, which is possession, which is the quality or the state of having ownership or control of some object or item. And we say that the information is said to be in possession if one obtains it or it is independent on format or any other characteristic. Here we can also see some of the key information security concepts referring to access. We refer to the ability to use or manipulate or modify or affect something, an object, a file, or any asset. Then we have the assets, which is the resource that it has been protected. And when we say asset, we don't only refer to data, but we refer also to systems and networks. Then we have attacks, which is either the intentional or the unintentional act that can damage or otherwise compromise information and also the systems that support it. We have the different controls, safeguards, or countermeasures, which are the policies, the procedures, the mechanisms that we follow in order to make sure that our system is secure. We have exploit, which is a technique used to compromise a system. Exposure, which is a condition or a state of being exposed. Loss, which is an instance where we lose information. It can also be part of a data breach or an asset that is suffering a damage or a destruction because of an attack. And also protection profile or security posture, which is an entire set of controls. It is not only paying for high quality technical systems, it's also the different safeguards that the organization implements to protect a particular asset. We also refer to risk, which is, as you know, the probability of an unwanted occurrence. We have subjects and objects of an attack. Here you need to keep in mind that a computer system can be a subject of an attack, but it can also be an object to an attack, which is used to conduct an attack. We have the different threats, which are the objects, people, or other entities that can be a danger to our system or to our assets. Threat agents, which are the specific instance or a component of a threat. We have threat events, which are the particular events that take place, and also the threat source from where it originates. And lastly, the vulnerability, which are the various weaknesses or faults in a system or a protection mechanism that can expose information to attack or damage. A computer can be a subject of an attack or an object of an attack. And when we refer to a subject of an attack, we say that the computer is used as an active tool. So we actually use a computer to conduct an attack, while when we refer to an object of an attack, the computer is the entity that is being attacked. So it is the object that has been attacked. Now, as I said before, it is important to keep in mind that an information system is the entire set of people, procedures, and technology that enable a business to use information. I am quite sure that you know about these components of an information system, which briefly are the software, the hardware, the data, the people, the procedures, the networks that all together form an information system. So cybersecurity needs to cover all of these components. We cannot concentrate on only one of these components without equally investing in the rest as well. So I repeat that cybersecurity is the process of securing each component of the information system. Now, in our willingness, if you would like, to protect the information system, if we are quite good as cybersecurity experts, we invest into heavy information security measures. But bear in mind that the heavier the information security measures, the more limited is the access and the usability of our system, because we make it harder for the user to access his systems without being authorized. So we actually have a lot of tests and checks to make sure that the person that tries to access, for example, his online banking is indeed the person that should have access to the legitimate user that should have access to that particular account. But on the other hand side, we limit the usability of that particular application. So what we need to do is to find the perfect balance between the two. So not to make it too hard for the user to enter his accounts or his systems, so make it quite usable, but at the same time, making sure that we have enough security to guarantee that the person accessing the system is the legitimate user. What you need to keep in mind is that it is impossible to obtain perfect information security. I repeat the word that I have mentioned before, that this is a process, not a goal. So it is actually an ongoing process that we need to invest into to make sure that our systems are quite secure, but at the same time, we need to pay attention to the usability side of things. Now let's proceed into the second section of this presentation, where we will be discussing on the threat actors and their motivations. You can see here the different types of cyber attacks. I use this statistic, this infographic, if you like. It is a bit back in 2019, it has been created back then, but I use it because it allows us to see the different types of cyber attacks on the different levels of the organization. So you can see that on your computer, you can have malware and phishing attacks. On the DNS, which is a domain name system, we can have denial of service attacks. On the way from the computer to the DNS and from the DNS to the internet, we can have man-in-the-middle attacks. On the internet, we can have cross-site scraping, which means on the HTML pages, and also on the databases, we can have SQL injection attacks or distributed denial of service attacks. Now here you can see the IC3, which is the Internet Crime Complaint Center from the USA, which receives complaints regarding a wide array of cyber-enabled crimes and how these affect the victims around the globe. You can see statistics coming from 2014 up to 2018, and you can see the exponential increase into the financial losses. So starting from 800 million, we have ended up to $2 billion of dollars in financial losses from cybercrime. So you need to be quite careful on that. So whom do we name a hacker? This is a good question that I take regularly from students and others as well. So hackers are individuals that have a profound interest in computers and technology, and they use their knowledge to access the computer systems with or without authorization from the system owners. The hackers have different ranges in their educational levels, but mostly they are young and they are male. So these are the demographics that we have in terms of hackers. There are 6 categories of hackers. We have the white hat hackers, which are largely considered to be security professionals, or else called ethical hackers. I am sure that you heard this notion quite a lot in the last year. They attempt to use their skills not to maliciously exploit weaknesses, but instead to work with other security professionals to improve the security protocols that protect the system or a network. And white hat hackers are actually being paid to reveal the weaknesses of the organization. Then we have the black hat hackers, which are deriving inspiration from the Western cinema, where all the bad characters used to wear this black hat. It refers to all of those individuals who forces their way into a system in order to exploit the system for a malicious reason. So they do have something in their mind. Now, the types of attacks and techniques which are used by these types of hackers are intended not only to steal sensitive information like passwords, personal information, or any other sensitive information, but also to gain financial income and also cause general confusion or destroying online services or even databases. So they aim to do harm. Then we have the gray hat hackers, those who are neither white hat or black hat hackers. These hackers usually attempt to infiltrate systems and networks with not any particular authorization, for example, black hat hackers are also doing. But however, they reveal different holes, different weaknesses of the systems, and they return those findings to the organizations or to the law enforcement agencies, and they point out those vulnerabilities to the administrators of the organizations in order for them to fix those vulnerabilities. So they don't actually do harm as well. We then have the red hat hackers, which are similar to policing agents. This is why you see also the glasses of the internet. What do? They actively search for black hat hackers and they shut them down. When they find a black hat hacker, they don't report the hacker to the authorities, but they take matters on their own hands. And we can say that it is like vigilantes of the internet. Then we have hacktivists, which is our fifth category. These are hackers who seek to garner publicity for a particular cause by hacking into a system or a website of relevant information. And we have hacktivists that may deface a website or a particular company or a government agency to protest against certain policies and bring it to the public attention and raise awareness. So this is the category in which Anonymous, which is a very well-known hacktivist group, belong to. We also have script kiddies, apologies, which are amateur hackers who are only aware of the very basic hacking techniques. So they have not evolved their knowledge at this point. They are unlikely to cause significant damage because they do not have the knowledge to do so. Such people mainly use open source hacking software or they borrow it from people that they know. As I said before, they do not pose a significant threat for organizations. Now, why do they do all of these actions? There have been a lot of research ongoing for the motivational factors behind hacking. And we have seen that the number one motivational factor is financial gain. Some of them are doing it because of the emotion that they gain when they hack a system, this emotion of probably happiness or successfulness that they have achieved something. Some others are doing it for political or ideological beliefs with no financial gain, but they do it because they have, let's say, political differences or other differences with organizations, governments, and so on. And some are doing it for fun, which is, again, something like a script kiddie that is attempting to create harm or gain access, unauthorized access into the system just for fun. Although the most prevalent one, I repeat that it is financial gain. Now, in the game, we also have nation states, which are also threats related to attacks in infrastructure, military, or even businesses. It can be difficult to identify the perpetrators because naturally they wish to go undetected and will always shift the blame to independent cyber groups, other foreign entities, or even hacktivists. One of the largest nation states in terms of cyber attacks is China, then we have Iran, we have North Korea, Russia, and many other countries that are quite good in cyber war. Now, which industries are at risk? Again, we have seen through research that the top 10 industries that have been targeted in 2020, and also you can see 2019 as a comparison there, is first and foremost finance and insurance sector. Then we have the manufacturing, the energy, retail, which is number 4, while in 2019 it has been number 2. Professional services, government, healthcare, media, transportation, and lastly, education. Let's proceed into our third part, which is the digital footprint. What do we mean with digital footprint? Why does it matter? How we can control it, and what issues does it entail? A digital footprint is also called a digital shadow or an electronic footprint. It refers to the trail of data you leave when you use the internet. So it includes the websites you visit, the emails you send, and the information that you submit online. A digital footprint can be used to track a person's online activities and the devices. And it actually involves all of those information that the user deliberately shares about themselves, like posting online into social media or other online forums, and all of these stay to the internet as a digital footprint. Now, when the user logs into a website through a registered username or a profile, any post that he or she makes is part of their active digital footprint. Other activities that also are engaged into this active digital footprint include when you complete online digital forms or when you accept cookies on your browser. We also have passive digital footprints, which is created when information is collected about the user, but without the user being aware of this taking place. For example, when you visit a website, let's say Amazon, an e-commerce website, you already know that they collect information of how many times you visit their website, for how long you use your website, where have you clicked, for how long you have stayed on a particular site, from which IP you have accessed their website, and many other detailed demographics that you have shared based on your profile. Now, all of this information is a hidden process. They are taken through a hidden process, mainly for marketing purposes, but the user does not realize that this is taking place. And this is what constitutes the passive digital footprint of a user. COVID-19 outbreak has posed a significant shift to the digital world, and consequently, it has caused massive challenges to the protection of human rights. Digitalization of the business environment creates those digital footprints that I have mentioned earlier that blur the boundaries between individuals and also organizations. And what does it do? It actually creates different risks in terms of transparency, equality, and inclusion. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic that we have been through and we are through the last 1.5 years necessitates digitalization by creating different circumstances like remote working or your organizations being transferred from offline to online in order to survive. these are main sources of digital footprints. Now, since COVID-19 pandemic has created an extensive dependency on the digital world, we have small, medium enterprises that are facing severe challenges for the management of the data and also how to manage their digital footprints. Why do they matter? Now, we have mentioned before that this is something that you cannot really avoid having either as an individual or as a small, medium enterprise. But why does it matter? Because they are permanent in the sense that once the data is public or even semi-public, like face posts that you can then delete or anything else, the data remain on the servers and they can be retrieved later on. A digital footprint determines the person's digital reputation and organizational digital reputation, which is considered as important as the offline reputation. We also have employers that can check for potential employees' digital footprints before they hire them. We can see different words, different photos that you post online, and they can be misinterpreted or altered, causing unintentional offenses. The content is intended for private groups, but it can also be spread in the broader circle, potentially damaging relationships or even friendships. This is something that takes place especially using systems like Viber, WhatsApp, where a private chat message can be forwarded to other groups as well, and it can expand in a non-desired way. And cyber criminals can exploit your digital footprint. They can use it for purposes like, for example, phishing that we will see in a while, or account access, or to create false identities based on your data. You can see here a list of the different sectors and some examples of how digital footprints are created. You can read them individually and think whether you are also part of these actions and whether you are creating either deliberately or unintentionally the particular digital footprint, passive or active as well. Let's proceed into the next part of the presentation. This is also the last part that I will deliver. Then George Kotsochristovou will take over on the various attacks that we face online. We have the most well-known type of attack, which is the denial of service attacks. It is when, for example, a system is taking too many requests and they can no longer handle them, and the system becomes not operative anymore. So it is denying service even to legitimate users. We also have another form of the denial of service attack, which is called the distributed denial of service attack, where all of these requests, the large volume of requests of input, originates from many hundreds or even thousands of sources, but the result is the same as a denial of service attack. Next is then dumpster diving. Dumpster diving is literally when someone is going through the trash cans that you have thrown away in the hope that they will spot sensitive information or other printed documents in your trash. So you can see, I am sure that you will be laughing at this, but this is something that happens. They are looking for passwords that you have noted on paper, for access codes, for organizational charts, for calendars, credit card receipts, or whatever they can take out information from in order to use them for further type of attacks like masquerading or social engineering attacks, phishing attacks, farming attacks that we will see in a while. So one obvious countermeasure to this would be to shred any documents or any other pieces of information printed, or I mean, like plastic cards of credit cards that have been expired, shred them on the shredder. With regards to eavesdropping, is the interception of data transmission. So someone, when you exchange information between you and another entity, that entity can be your online banking provider, it can be another colleague or anyone else. You enter the login credentials or any sensitive information, and instead of traveling to the other end, as it should have been traveling, there is an interception in between. So we have the methods like network sniffing. Maybe they originate from compromised systems. We have wireless network sniffing as well. So obvious countermeasures to this would be encryption. So even if someone tries to eavesdrop, they will not be able to reveal the actual message that you have tried to send from one end to another. This is an example of the man-in-the-middle attack, which, as I said before, it is one of the most popular types of attacks. We also have spoofing and masquerading. This is especially crafted network packets that contain forged address of origin. We have the different TCP/IP protocols that permit MAC and IP addresses to be forged, which actually means that someone is interpreting to be someone else, but you believe that it is the legitimate user. So you can see here also in the image and depiction of what really happens. Countermeasures would be to have a router or firewall configuration to drop the different forged packages, or use emails for signaling or data transfer. Social engineering, this is a huge chapter on its own. So social engineering is when people are tricked into giving sensitive information by making them think that they are helping someone. So what is this method based on is pretty much the trust that persons show to other people. So when we trust that the person calling us is indeed the one that he claims to be, then we provide information even over the telephone. This social engineering is one of the most popular types of attacks. It is also one of the most prevalent ones, and it cannot be contained in any way with the use of technical tools. So what we need to invest in order to make social engineering more understandable to our employees is to raise their awareness on security. So we need to have trainings for our employees. We need to let them know what is social engineering, how to avoid it, how to reveal social engineering attacks, and also not to fall victims of this. I will proceed by showing a very interesting video to you, showing, let me share it here. Okay, I think it will be okay. Good. Have a look at it and see how easy it is to be a victim of social engineering attack.
So I invited a few of the world's best hackers to try to hack me and show me where my vulnerabilities are. And now I'm going to meet them in Las Vegas for DEF CON, the biggest hacker convention of the year. They're going to hack me using social engineering, which is essentially hacking without any code. They just use a phone and an internet connection.
Do you want to do a sample phishing call?
What's phishing?
Phishing is voice solicitation, and basically what you do is you use the phone to extract information or data points that can be used in a later attack.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Who are you going to call?
Maybe I'll call your cell phone provider and
Okay.
see if I can get them to give me your email address.
I bet they're good. I bet they have my back. But yeah, go for it.
I'm gonna spoof from your number, so it's gonna look like it's calling from you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay? My baby, I'm sorry. my my husband's like, we're about to apply for a loan and we just had a baby and he's like, get this done by today. So I'm so sorry. I can't call you back. I'm trying to log into our account for uses information and I can't remember what email address we used to log the account. The baby's crying and can you help me? Awesome.
In just 30
At
seconds,
gmail.com.
Jessica gets access to my personal email address.
Now, if I needed to add our older daughter on our account so she could call in and make changes, how would I need to go about doing that? You would have to send me a secure PIN through a text message? Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't think I'll be able to receive a text message if I'm on the phone. Oh, I'm not on there either? So I thought when we got married, he added me to the account.
Jess uses my girlfriend's name and a fake social security number
5127.
to set up her own personal access to my account.
Wait, I'm sorry. So there's no password on my account right now? Can I set that up?
She even gets the support person to change my password.
Thank you so much for your help today.
So she just basically blocked me out of my own account.
I'll get her fed after this. All right. Thank you.
Holy shit. So they just gave you access to my entire cell phone account.
You're going to have to go on and change your password now because it's Jess, my name.
And all it took was a crying baby and a phone call.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have seen how easy it is to get victims of social engineering. I'm sure that the particular girl in the other side of the phone did not really understand that she has been a victim of such an attack. So let's proceed to phishing. In the video, we have seen phishing, which is voice elicitation. In this case, this is phishing where we get fraudulent email messages which are designed to have an appearance as they originate from a legitimate person, but they are requesting particular sensitive data from us as a return. For example, I'm sure that you have seen at least once an email saying that you have been part of an organization and that they have gained a lot of money and they would like to send you an initial amount if you provide them with your IBAN number and other different details that they are asking from you. So these are phishing attacks, and again, they belong into the social engineering category. The countermeasure to this is to gain security awareness training. So you need to train your employees on how to detect these messages and, of course, not follow them. We also have farming. This is a redirection of traffic to a forked website. They create a website similar to the one that you are trying to log in. Let's say your online banking website. When you visit that website, you are requested to enter your username and password. Then you click login and you are transferred into an empty page. This has been a forked website. It appears to be the real thing. However, your data have already been transferred into the attacker, and they now can gain access into the original website using your username and password. Here, again, we need to invest into user awareness training, also into different patches and better controls in the organization. Now let's see a comparison between the two. We have farming and phishing. Farming is harder to identify. It targets multiple people at a time. We have malicious code installed on your computer, and it automatically redirects without requiring users to click a link. While phishing is much easier to identify, it targets one person at a time, but this is not always true. They can send phishing emails to hundreds of people at once. Malicious email is sent to the inbox, and it requires users to manually click a link and activate code. So you need to remember that You should never follow phishing emails or click onto particular links that are provided in order to provide any kind of information, sensitive information to them. Now, social engineering and phishing attacks in numbers. Phishing has increased in 2021. It has been 1 in every 402,000 emails. And we have 65% of groups that use spear phishing as the primary infection vector. 1 in 13 web requests leads to malware. We also have 80% of security incidents that have been phishing attacks, and 88% of organizations worldwide experience spear phishing. Spear phishing is much more targeted in 2019. Another type of attack is the password guessing, where hackers try to guess a possible password that you could have used on a particular account. Now, for this, it is very helpful for them to see your digital footprint, and they can extract personal information for you and try to guess your password. There are also tools available online in which you can describe a particular person, you can give information, personal information about him or her, and they can provide a list of different passwords that they could have used, and hackers can try those in order to see whether those passwords are successful or not. So what is a countermeasure to this? To use strong, complex passwords and also change the passwords very often. This is why when you have business emails, they require you to change your password every 3 months, the latest. Also, you need to have strong passwords in the sense that you should use numbers, symbols, letters, capital case and lowercase, and also to have many numbers, many characters, sorry, into the password to make it harder for the hackers to attack. You can see here a table showing how hard it is to break a password full of characters and including numbers, upper and lowercase letters and symbols. Also, many online systems nowadays, even Google and others, do not allow you to create a password that is not strong enough. And when you try to type your future password, they give you a linker scale showing how secure is your password with a green letter, with a green color, whether it is a medium with an orange color, whether it is not strong at all and can be easily retrieved by someone with a red color. And they do not allow you to move forward unless you select a stronger password. Malicious code, we have the different virus, worms, Trojan horses, spyware, keyloggers. All of these are codes that are used to harvest data or cause system malfunction. These are mainly codes that run on your system. Therefore, the countermeasures would be to run antivirus and anti-spyware, but also in order for the user to understand that they have malicious code running on their systems, to have a security awareness training. Now let's proceed to SMEs business stats. We have small, medium enterprises around the globe that they report that they have insufficient security measures. 45% of them say that their processes are ineffective at mitigating attacks. 66% have experienced a cyber attack in the past 12 months. 69% say that cyber attacks are becoming more targeted. Here you can see the common type of attacks on SMEs. We have 50% for social engineering and phishing attacks, 33% for stolen devices and compromised devices, and 30% for credential theft. So you can see that the most prevalent is social engineering. As I told you earlier, it is the attack that relies on the trust that we as humans show to other humans. And also it is the only type of attack that cannot be mitigated with the use of technical means. So we need to invest heavily in security training for our employees. Now, I close this session with the ENISA Threat Landscape Report 2021. As you know, ENISA is the responsible organization for cyber security around the EU. They provided us with some findings, like, for example, 84% of cyber attacks rely on social engineering. 67 attacks of malware was delivered via encrypted HTTPS connections, which means that even those are not quite secure in terms of malware being installed on our PC. 71% of organizations experience malware activity that spread from one employee to another, and this shows that we are not alone in our organization. We cannot think of as single individuals inside an organization. What we do, or what each employee does, has an effect to an effect to the whole organization. So you need to make sure that each employee in your organization is aware of cybersecurity facts, and that they know how to detect cybersecurity attacks, and they can report it to the person responsible, and also that you have all the technical measures which are needed to secure your organization. And also you can see that 230,000 new strains of malware are created every single day. So you can see the volume of malware that you need to be facing every single day in your organization. So I will now pass the floor to my esteemed colleague, Dr. George Hadjichristofi.
Good morning. May I get access to sharing? Nelly, please. Okay, thank you for the information, the introduction, Yana. Let me take over this session. I'll continue on other relevant piece of information. Maybe something very quick about me. I'm an associate professor at the European University Cyprus. I founding member of the Cyberdyuc Security Research Center. And well, let me just say that the objective of today is awareness, being aware in terms of what the weaknesses, what's there, and how do we proceed, okay? And that's a key aspect. It's important to bring people here, to get people concerned. In Cyprus, we are kind of starting, kind of not. We need more awareness. We need people to be vigilant in terms of what's needed as far as security. Okay. So I'm assuming you can see my screen, right? Can I get some feedback, Yana?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So I will continue to talk a little bit about passwords and then proceed to the aspect of bring your own device, and then discuss a little bit some cyber security tips and a little bit about GDPR. Okay, passwords. So it's important, as you already know, that we keep a password a secret. We don't just write it, we post it, we don't share it with others. And it's important that we keep it encrypted somewhere. And of course, it's important in terms of how we handle it. I'm aware of this, and even I make mistakes. Yesterday, I was giving a lecture, and I had open behind my window the file with containing different passwords. So what happened is when I minimized the window that I was showing to students, everybody else got to see my passwords. So I had to spend 1 hour to change around 10, 12 passwords. So, okay, handling passwords is important as well. Yes, I do encrypt it. Yes, I do keep it safe, but it's important we are careful in terms of managing it, in terms of how we handle it. Okay, so we have user IDs and we have passwords. The user IDs are typically stored in plaintext on a database, and this is mainly for the purpose of looking up particular users, but passwords are already encrypted, and this is very important. Of course, we have different services that come with password. One such service is the notion of what happens when I forget the password, and that very much depends as far as in terms of how you actually handling passwords. And here you can see that if I'm actually encrypting a password where I'm using a particular key to get the ciphertext, and then I have the flexibility of going backwards and decrypting it and providing the password back to the user. So this is nice, but when it comes to just simply getting a password and hashing it, where hashing allows us to simply get a text and produce something smaller, this is not feasible. This is not feasible because based on the properties of hashing, you cannot get the hash value and go backwards, okay? And that hashing has been invented so as to ensure that if someone hacks into a particular server, he won't find the password, he will find the hash values, which will be meaningless. Well, okay, so that's good, but it's not entirely true. Because if your password includes a plain word, such as, for example, Apple, then using a specific password, the hash value would be the same. So there are the so-called rainbow tables on Google, where you can just find all hashes of typical words that are being used, words, of course, with variation. For example, Apple 1, Apple 2, Apple 3. And that will actually allow you to find what the password is by simply getting the hash value and Googling it. Okay, so if you Google it, you will find that this corresponds to Apple 1 or Apple 2. And another method for handling that is to come and add salt to your password. So if your password is Apple, as I said before, you add YRTZD, you add your salt, and this will give you a slightly different password. So it won't be as easy in terms of actually using rainbows and Googling this particular hash value and finding what your password is. Okay. So if we want to go beyond passwords, then we need to use something stronger. As I said, okay, it turns out that we can easily guess passwords. We may share passwords, and this creates risks. So if we want to go into a stronger direction, we have to use multi-factor authentication. So where a single factor is typically what the user knows, and a two-factor authentication deals with also what the user has, okay? And a user can have a USB, such as what you see here on the screen. It can have a particular card. He can have basically a digital certificate or a smart card, okay? And this will allow him to provide stronger authentication for a particular service, okay? If we want to go even stronger, we can go with biometric information. We can use fingerprint. We can do some form of iris scan. We can do signatures. We can do voice, etc. Of course, they all have their limitations, and we need to be careful in terms of what we select as far as providing authentication. So, concerns in terms of authentication deal with the password quality, as my colleague mentioned before, and also this notion of using the same credentials across multiple environments. You have a user, he chooses his username, he chooses his password, and it turns out that this username password can be used in a million of other accounts. And maybe, okay, some of these accounts are personal, which, okay, if there is an issue, then that particular individual will suffer. But within a particular business, there is a tendency to actually branch and use the personal passwords for the company and so on and so forth. So you have one universal password which gives access to both the personal account and also the account within your company. So that is a little bit risky. Okay, so if we go the other way and create many passwords, okay, then that is an issue of, okay, I have too many user IDs, too many passwords, I don't know what's going on, so maybe write them down. So I need to be careful in terms of how I actually manage them, how I actually save them, okay? And as Dr. Danidou mentioned before, we need to realize how we're going to handle password resets, how often. Is that convenient? You can't reset every day. That's going to frustrate employees, right? But you can reset maybe every 3 weeks. And even that will create some issues. But you need to choose your boundary based on, to some level, on the level of security of your systems and on the level of encryption you're using, okay? So it takes some time to break something in terms of passwords, in terms of authentication. So you need to take it into account. If you renew as passwords, it means that it's going to take a hacker more time as he's going to start from scratch again to try and discover what your new password is. Okay. So, of course, we do need to understand how we deal or figure out how we deal with compromised passwords. If something is compromised, the question is, has the account been compromised? To what level? What information has been given out? What is the risk? Okay. So this needs to be assessed, and this needs to be kind of structured before it happens, so that there is a plan of action in terms of what the company should do. So now I will branch a little bit into the topic of mobile security. And this ties with bring your own device. The idea that you allow employees to bring their own device in the workplace. Let me just say that the bring your own device security market has actually gone up to around 68 billions in 2019 and is expected to reach 252 billions by 2026. So this is how much you need to spend to secure yourself, okay, on the aspect of bring your own device. Of course, 60% of workers say that they use their smartphone at work, and 31% say that they want to be able to use it at work. 50% of workers over the age of 30 say that, okay, it's great to be able to use your cell phone at work. It's more productive. And it has been documented actually that this saves on average 58 minutes each day to employee, and it decreases productivity by 34%. So, okay, it seems that it's profitable to allow employees to bring their own devices, but there are risks. So what are the risks? The first one is data theft, okay? So some personal applications, they may not be as strict with what they need in terms of security requirements. And if a personal application is not as strict on security, then it means that maybe that application can be hacked. And if it's hacked, it means that it may also expose some data from your company. So it's important that you allow for the installation and the use of bring your own devices software, okay? And this will allow the technician to be able to manage remotely your device and spot suspicious activity. Doesn't sound very nice, but when a company is dealing with millions or billions of money, then what happens is that you need to be able to secure that, and you need to be able to secure the operations of the company. The next aspect here is malware. Okay, so people tend to download different files. They download words, they download PDFs, and they may download applications and games. An employee may not distinguish, okay, in terms of this notion of handling differently corporate data as opposed to personal data, and this creates issues. So it's important to implement within the company strict usage policies. And the objective is for employees to read these policies so as to mitigate any risk in terms of this particular vulnerabilities or attacks that could exist from malware. So if you bring your own device, it may lead to a lot of legal problems. It may damage irreparably the particular company. It may actually lead to litigation, and it may cause some companies to go bankrupt. So it's important to work with the legal counsel to develop documents and to develop policies in terms of how these devices should be used and how they should be handled. The other aspect here is, okay, what happens when we lose data? Sorry, we lose devices, and with that we lose data. The best case scenario is that, okay, for the particular employee, it's an inconvenience. But the worst case scenario is that it can be a complete disaster, meaning that you get a data breach for your company, you lose passwords, you lose lots of money, and that could cause a lot of issues. Okay. Of course, we have the scenario of where maybe the employee followed the policy, okay, but it doesn't mean that there is no risk. There are many hacking tools. They are pretty sophisticated. It doesn't mean that, okay, if the employee did follow the different policies and he lost his cell phone, there are no problems. So a solution to that might be to use mobile device management software, okay, and that will allow the IT personnel to remotely wipe the device. So as soon as you actually say, okay, I lost my phone, that person can log in and can wipe your device. So let's assume that the person did not lose their cell phone, but the person has decided to leave the company. It's important that as soon as the person leaves the company, we reset the passwords, we revoke access, and we can even go a step further to be able to have the particular software in place that can track down where the device of the particular person is. Okay. And as my colleague mentioned, we need to have pretty good training. The key point here is that employees should understand the importance of a particular policy, of a particular security measure, and also the details in terms of device security. So it's not just this notion of saying, okay, I get the idea. It's not just to get the idea. The idea there is to go in depth, to understand the details, to understand what the steps to take it seriously and execute it properly. Okay, so we need to have training, and if we want to be serious about that, we can even have employees read and sign particular policies stating that they clearly understand what the policy states. So an issue here is this notion of shadowing IT with regards to bring your own device. It turns out that employees will go out of their way and just use consumer-grade products and technologies. They can get any software or hardware and use it without getting the permission or without informing the IT department. And we have some stats here. 80% of workers admit to using SaaS applications without asking IT. So that's a problem. So if you shadow IT, it means that this could lead to problems in case that particular software is not to the security level it's supposed to be for the particular purpose. Okay, so 1/3 of security pros admit that the company's Bring Your Own Device program imposes a burden in terms of resources for the particular company. So if we look at data leakage, these are the aspects, these are the particular points that we need to take into account. Definitely, as I said, use mobile device management, use smarter data provisioning, meaning that you need to minimize access as much as possible. Based on the relevant individual, you can decide whether he's supposed to use or see specific data or not. So you minimize as much as possible. And of course, we need to be careful in terms of introducing a separation between the software we are using and the software of the company, and definitely using the VPN, the virtual private network of a particular company, which provides security for the transmission of data. Another aspect in terms of data leakage is the file integrity monitoring, meaning that you have an agent, you have a software which is working with your cell phone, and if the file integrity changes, it means that there is a problem, and this is going to allow basically the IT to be able to act immediately and take over in terms of securing your device. Okay, so we talked about this notion of apps. We've talked about this notion of being careful in terms of accepting us. But the truth is that there is this notion of app fatigue, meaning that you want to really get the software and it pops up the window and it gives you a million aspects in terms of what the software needs access to. But what your concern is to use software. You get tired in terms of reading and you say, okay, come on, I really need to use it. I don't want to read. Let me just accept the terms and proceed. So that's an issue. That's an issue because it can lead to the infection of your device. We need to be careful in terms of what we give access to when we install a particular application. And of course, we need to be careful in terms of using outdated mobile operating systems, meaning that if you are using your cell phone, you will periodically get a pop-up that you have a new patch, you have a new update on your cell phone. How do you handle that? Do you just say, okay, no, I need to browse, I need to look at my email, I need to look at Facebook, I need to look at WhatsApp. Let me just leave it for later on. And maybe one day passes, 2 days, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks passes, and you simply reject it because you don't want the convenience of waiting for it to go through, waiting for the cell phone to reboot, etc. But during the period of time that you are not installing the particular patch, it means that you are vulnerable because if we assume that the particular patch was securing you against a weakness, vulnerability, then it means that you will be in trouble for that period of time. Okay, so policies. Policies are important. It's necessary to have policies to avoid any fines. Mind you that there are many policies that we need to comply with. We have the PCI DSS, which has to do with payment card industry data security standard. We have the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. We have many regulatory requirements. And for being able to comply with these requirements, we need to create policies. So if we are to create policies, this means that the IT professionals will have to be able to address a number of tasks, and these tasks can range from passwords to lock screens to single sign-on, etc., etc. So there are a lot of things that needs to be handled within the company. So in the next section, where I'm going to talk a little bit about Wi-Fi security. Some of the things are known, some of the things are not so known, but let's proceed. So what are the risks in terms of wireless networks? The first one is piggybacking. Piggybacking is what happens when someone is looking for access to the internet. Your wireless network is not as secure, then someone can get access and basically get access to the internet through your unsecure access point. So with that, of course, if he gets access through your access point, it means that he can get access to your network. It means that he can do a lot of damage to your company. A similar aspect to piggybacking is this notion of ward driving. And it has been proven some years back that if you want access to the internet and you drive around a big city, it means that it can give you access. You can get access to the internet. You can basically, while you drive, dynamically hack the different access points and have at least 90 to 95% access to the internet while driving around. So these are aspects that we need to take into account when we need to set up the demilitarized zone of your network within your company, so that we set it up securely, so that someone getting through your wireless access point won't branch to your intranet and cause damage. Another risk relates to this notion of having an evil twin, meaning that you are somewhere, you see a particular access point, and you basically create a form of similar access point by using a similar name, but your access point is stronger. So if your access point is stronger, it means that other people can connect to your access point, and it means that they will not access the access point of the company. This could be a problem because it means that all the people within the company will go through a hacker's access point. And if it goes through the hacker's point, it means that the hacker has the flexibility to use tools and get the data transmitted to a particular access point. So this will create major issues in terms of getting data or corporate data and taking advantage of different attacks. So it's important when you connect to a particular access point to make sure you verify where you are connecting to, and make sure that you're connecting to a trusted access point. So if the access point is XYZ, make sure that you're connecting to XYZ. If you see XYZ1, it doesn't necessarily mean that the company has installed a new access point. It means that maybe someone is running something with a similar name. And mind you that we sometimes set up our cell phones to dynamically get the stronger signal. So we are not always aware that, okay, our cell phone has switched from the valid access point to the rogue access point. So keep that in mind. Wireless sniffing, you already know about that. It's the notion of getting information that travels in the clear. Note that when you're doing a search on Google, it's not secure. Everybody can see what you're searching for. So if you want to send information that is sensitive, make sure you are using encryption. We have different protocols now. We have WPA 1, 2, and 3. 3 is the latest one and the strongest one. And of course, it's advisable to buy devices that support the latest protocol in terms of encryption. And if you are sharing information, if you are on the internet, make sure you deny sharing files and folders so that someone won't have access to your entire file directory if in case there is a compromise. And make sure you only have access to a particular data, so you only provide access to a particular dedicated directory, and you make sure though that what you put in that directory is actually safe. Doesn't by safe it means that it doesn't provide or doesn't give any sensitive information to people accessing from outside. Okay, so password protect everything that you share. lock or disable sharing. These are the key points here. And of course, you never open your hard drive for file sharing. That's a very big mistake. Shorter surfing, the idea here is simple. We've known for many years. Just be alert. Someone may be just walking behind you and looking on your screen. Maybe you are typing a password. Maybe you are doing something else. Some suggestions are to use screen protectors, but generally you need to be vigilant in terms of who is behind you, who is looking, and who is not. Okay. Okay. So someone can also steal your device. If your device is stolen, make sure you fully encrypt all your sensitive information. Make sure that if you have cloud access, if you are accessing information on the cloud, make sure that every time you want to access information, you use the login. Okay, don't just set it up by default so that you don't have to push your password every time. This will create issues. If your password is stolen, it means that someone will have access to your information on the cloud. So that's something to keep into account. And of course, individually encrypt or password protect all your files and sensitive information. Okay, so overall, what can you do to minimize risks? Of course, change default passwords and restrict access on your access point. You can do that using the MAC address, okay? Figure out who is within the company, and you may be able to set up firewall rules or, generally speaking, rules to allow specific MAC addresses. So which means that by default, you will be blocking other people from logging into your system. Okay, so if you noticed you are, if you open your cell phone and you enable wireless, by default, your cell phone discovers the different access points that are visible within your area. What happens is that this works simply because you have the wireless access point set up to advertise its SSID. So periodically, the access point will come and say, okay, I am access point XYZ, XYZ, XYZ. So that's how you know that XYZ is present. If you want to be more secure, it's better not to advertise, which means that if someone is passing by your home or by your company, he won't be able to see that this access point exists. Even though it is there, it doesn't exist. So this is going to be something internal. You know that you have XYZ, but it's not advertised. Also, it's important that the SSID of the access point is also changed from the default one, because sometimes the default name of the particular access point gives out the manufacturer's detail, it gives out information regarding the version of the particular access point. And this is actually a little bit risky simply because if you know the manufacturer, if you know the version, immediately you are able to figure out what exploits you can are there, and also what vulnerabilities are there, and take advantage of the particular hardware that you have. Okay, so you know what's a firewall, you know the idea of installing antivirus software. I'm not going to go in more in depth on that. But just let me note here that it's good to also see what your internet service provider has in terms of security. Maybe there are specific tools you can use. And this also goes for your router manufacturer. So periodically, they may put new tools, they may put new services, they may put updates. So keep track of that. And of course, if you are outside, you want to access your network resources within your company, if there is a VPN, please use it. Don't just ignore it, use it. Let's say you buy a new computer. Is there anything that you need to be aware of? Okay, so if you buy a new computer, you don't need to expose it straight shot into a public network. You need to be cautious about that. So you need to make sure that you have secured your router. Okay, you are in your home network. You have enabled, you have configured your firewall. You have your antivirus running. And of course, looking at your device, you need to remove any unnecessary software. Usually you have certain software that come with your laptop, delete what is not being used, okay? And backup just in case something breaks. And of course, it's good if you set up the access right on your laptop so that you are a plain user and not an administrator on your device. This is important, even though you may be owning the particular device, it's best that if you have a separate account with limited access. And this is for the purposes of compromises. If your device is compromised, it means that if you are an administrator, you are giving administrator access to the hacker. So this is similar to this notion of deleting software that you are not using. Step 6 focuses on removing built-in features. So there are some features which come with the operating system, just disable them. You don't need to have them on. And of course, when you start to use the internet, make sure that you increase your security settings. Typically, their security settings are set to medium level. Maybe you can take it a step higher. Taking a step higher, it's a better option, but you may be also facing some usability or functionality limitations. So you may need to play a little bit with that and see how that works. So in the next section, I'm going to actually cover some cybersecurity tips. Some of the points we already talked about. First one, of course, back up your files. If something goes wrong, then you definitely have the comfort of knowing that you have recently backed up your file, you have a recovery plan, and you can be up and running within a short period of time. And this also ties with the continuity plan of your company. Of course, avoid opening suspicious emails. Hardware, it's important to actually not use outdated hardware, even though they may be serving their purpose. Sometimes hardware, they may not be able to support the software security upgrades that are needed, or we take it the other way, maybe hardware won't be able to respond fast enough to be able to handle a particular attack. Okay. When you access the internet, check the links, okay, that you are accessing. Make sure that the names are not weird. Make sure that you are using security. If you see the S, it means that the information you are actually transmitting is secure. And when I say yes, I was referring to HTTPS. Okay. If you are not using Bluetooth, disable that. Is not needed to be on when you are not actually using it. Always try and use two-factor authentication. Have 2 minutes of authenticating yourself, and that's going to help you in terms of making sure that nobody else accesses your information. And the last part in terms of cybersecurity tips for this slide is this notion of adware. Okay, adware are important from the angle of a company. They provide information for marketing. They actually support the business model, but they actually violate your privacy. And it's good if you are able to remove them. Okay, so I talked about HTTPS. That's important. Make sure that it's there. And also make sure that you store information in secure places. It's important that employees in the company avoid the secure enough mentality, meaning that, okay, I feel that our ITs are doing a good job. I don't need to worry, I need to relax. There is no need to be concerned about the policies. Of course, that is not true. Keep in mind that Facebook actually invests an extremely large amount of money to be able to be secure. And of course, Facebook is suffering from a lot of attacks as well. So if you are using different security devices, make sure that you upgrade them on time, okay? Make sure that you are secure, and make sure that you also employ a white hacker to test how secure your network is. So if you have your IT, if you have your trained personnel on security, they probably do the best they can in terms of their knowledge, in terms of securing the different devices. But security is to some level a game as well. You have to be able to guess what the hacker can do. So it's a game. You guess X, maybe the hacker can guess X plus 1. The hacker can guess something different. So if you bring a new person into the company, maybe he has some new ideas, maybe he has some other scenarios to test. So it's important to have someone test your environment. Since we're talking about security, keep in mind that it has been projected that by 2021, there will be 4 million unfilled jobs, okay? And so these are some stats from ISACA 2020 report. So the claim is that if we have fully staffed teams, they are more confident in their ability to treat cyber threats. And of course, if you look at the stats at the bottom, 62% say that they are understaffed. Okay, so we have this issue in terms of understaffing personnel. And the other issue is how much time it's going to take us to find personnel. And the statistics on the right show that the longer it takes to find someone, then the more attacks you're going to suffer. So if you cannot find someone, you can see that it's going to take, it's going to increase your cyber attacks by 42%. So that's important to be able to fill in the positions, be able to address any security weaknesses that you have, and have a fully staffed team. The next and last component that I'm going to talk to you about is this notion of GDPR. The GDPR stands for General Data Protection Regulation, and the objective is to give control to individuals about their personal data, how it's being handled, and also try and unify regulations within the European Union and simplify the regulatory environment for businesses. Okay. So the GDPR is meant to protect personal data and also restrict the export of personal data outside the European Union. So when we talk about the European Union, this is where information is or should be locked based on GDPR. So GDPR protects all these areas. Of course, this is an older map because I see that there is a lock above England. Okay, so which companies does this apply to? We can say that any company that stores or processes personal information about European citizens then should comply with GDPR. And this company may be in the European Union, but it doesn't have to be, okay? So if there is a company which is outside the European Union and processes personal data, then basically it should comply with GDPR. And of course, I was referring to personal data of European citizens. So if you want to process and collect information, there should be lawful basis for that. And these are the lawful bases to be able to do so. First one, of course, is there should be consent from the individual, or maybe the individual has signed a contract. Maybe there is a legal obligation in terms of executing a specific activity. Maybe it refers to the health of someone that ties with vital interests. Maybe it's a public task. For example, it may has to do with exercising a particular law, okay? And maybe it has to do with the legitimate interest of a company, such as maybe processing client information or processing employee information or for marketing purposes. So every time the company collects data, it needs to get your consent. Someone can no longer just opt out, okay? So there should be explicit consent, and maybe this is a written statement, maybe it has to do with ticking a box, maybe it has to do with choosing particular information. So the consent needs to be there. It's not just inferred. GDPR protects personal identifiable information, that is your name, that is your address, that is your ID, but it also extends to web information such as location, cookie data, RFID, logins, location, etc. We also have a special category of information, sensitive information such as their race, political opinions, sexual life, religious beliefs, etc. And for this particular category, there needs to be specific consent, okay? Maybe it ties with an employment law, maybe it ties with legal proceedings, maybe it has to do with public health or medical purposes, etc. So what rights do you have with regards to GDPR? You need to basically, you have the right to be informed, meaning that you can access how your data is being processed, who it will be shared with, what their rights are, okay, with respect to it. And of course, the company must comply, it must reply within a short period of time, and the information applied needs to be as clear as possible. And of course, it should be provided free of charge. You have the right to access your information. And if we take it from the angle of small businesses, all your clients have the right to access the information, okay? So they will need information in terms of how their data is being processed, what is the law behind the processing of the particular data, and just request access to their data. And as I said, this should be handled in a short period of time, and the period is set to 1 calendar month. So if you imagine that the company has lots and lots of clients, you have thousands of clients, so this should be done automatically. If it's not done automatically, it's going to cause a lot of overhead for the company and a very high cost. The individual has the right to rectify or the right to rectification, meaning that the data or the personal information that you have regarding clients or regarding employee should be up to date. And any request from an individual to correct inaccurate data should be handled by the company within a reasonable amount of period of time. And if the company cannot rectify the particular data, then it should explain to the data subject why it's not amending the particular record. If it does so, it should also inform the particular subject that it has actually gone through and corrected the information. And here you can see an individual, he's saying, okay, I'm 18 years old. Of course, the data has not been rectified for a very long period of time. So this is a tough one, right to erasure. Someone can simply come to a company and say, okay, I want to delete all my information. maybe there is no need to have some data. And there is no need to have some data simply because you are not processing it for the purpose that it was collected. Or maybe the data has been unlawfully processed. Maybe there is a legal obligation to erase. So there are different reasons in terms of doing so. But overall, this is a very difficult task. And this is also summarized in this particular slide. This is a GDPR tool. You have basically probably the administrator or the boss or the owner, and it says, okay, it's an erasure request. Erase everything we have on that person. Okay. And the person goes like, okay, how do we do that? Okay. There are log files, there are backup tapes, there is microfilm. If we look at Microsoft or we look at Google, we have the right to go to Google and say, okay, I want to have my data erased. And tying it to what Dr. Danilo said before, if your digital footprint is online and it's everywhere online, how do you go about constraining that, finding it and deleting it? Consider you have lots and lots and lots of backups. Mind you that I've talked to a couple of business owners and they said that their solution to this was simply to erase half of their database. So they didn't want to worry about that. They simply went and they erased their database. Of course, we have the right to restrict processing, meaning that employees, clients can come and request that certain processing is restricted. Maybe that deals with this notion of dealing with an accuracy claim, or maybe it has to do with the exercise of a legal claim. But regardless, people or citizens or clients have the right to restrict processing. Right to portability, that's a nice component. It's a nice component because since you are putting your data out in a particular format, if you are going from one company to the next, if you want to transfer your information from one company to the next, you can do it. And of course, this information should be in a particular format. And it's implied that the individual basically has given this data. And of course, he has given his consent to be able to do so. Of course, in order to facilitate portability, we need to have some form of automated means. To object, you can object. Clients can object. If you are collecting information, if you are marketing, someone may call you and say, okay, I object to direct marketing. Okay. And of course, the company must comply immediately. There are no exceptions in terms of that. Someone else also can object to processing if it's done for the public interest, for legitimate interest, as I said before, where legitimate interest may be dealing with marketing purposes or processing on employee information, etc. So a company may not comply if it demonstrates, okay, that there is a need for the particular processing, but regardless, it needs to address this very carefully. One of the key aspects of GDPR is this notion of accountability. It means that whatever happens, you are accountable. And if there is a problem, if you are to be blamed in terms of losing lots and lots and lots of private information, there is a data breach, then it means that you are accountable. And in order to face this aspect, you need to have effective policies in place. And policies such as processing data, such as maintaining records of processing, such as having a person, a data protection officer taking care of this component and guiding this direction in terms of how the information is processed, how it's collected, etc. And of course, periodically doing some form of analysis, a data impact analysis, to figure out how vulnerable you are. Under GDPR, everything must be secure. There should be appropriate technical, organizational, and security measures. And of course, this ties with staff training, with internal audits, with security mechanisms such as encryption and pseudonymization, meaning that you are hiding the actual private information behind the particular data. And of course, you need to have basically measures in place and procedures in place to be able to handle different events such as a breach. What happens when you have a breach? You have to notify within 72 hours. Okay. And of course, you do that when there is a risk to rights and freedoms of individuals, but you don't have to actually inform the individuals, the citizens, unless you judge that there is a high risk to the rights of these individuals. So if there is a high risk to the rights, you need to report it. So if you want your company to be GDPR compliant, there are a series of steps that you want to take into account. And these are shown in this slide. Some of these are to basically identify what personal data you have, how you are handling, executing some logs in terms of how the personal data is being used, controlling the access, having policies in place in terms of different means or different ways you are handling the data, having particular mechanisms in place as far as security is concerned, be able to handle data breaches, and of course, you have a plan for ongoing assessment. You periodically assess how secure your data is. In case it is asked, these are the information that the companies must provide. I'm not going to go over them in detail so as not to tire you. You can read them here. But basically, it has to do with this notion of what data is being processed, how it's being processed, and what the company is doing to secure the data. What happens if we are not GDPR compliant? Okay, so the US Attorney General Paul McCartney said that if you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance. Okay, so the idea of compliance is basically tied to you being able to show that basically you have handled information with care, okay, and you did the best that you could. If there are issues, of course, the penalty is up to 20 million euro or 4% of the global annual turnover of a company. Okay. And out of the two, whichever is higher, that's a very large amount. So if you have a data breach, it may lead to your company going bankrupt. And I'm assuming that the company is small, okay, and it may not be able to cope with a particular fine. So that's all I wanted to say from my part. I hope you found some components interesting. So I think it's good to open the floor for questions. Any questions?
Before or as long as the audience is thinking of their questions, there is a form posted on the chat, a questionnaire that we would kindly ask you to complete for DSA.
Yes, if I may jump in. First of all, a big thank you to Dr. Danido and Dr. Hajikristofi for this invaluable presentation that they put forth this morning. Regarding this questionnaire that's been posted on the chat, it's a questionnaire that's been prepared by the Digital Security Authority in cooperation with the Cyprus GEDE. Some of you may have already seen this questionnaire because it's been posted over the last couple of weeks. If so, thank you very much for participating. If not, feel free and please give it a go. All the information collected will be analyzed and processed with full confidentiality by the DSA, and the results will be presented in, let's say, statistical form. Everything is anonymized. The questionnaire will remain open until this coming Sunday, the 21st of November. So please feel free and spare us 5 minutes. Make a copy of the link now showing in the chat. And for any questions, you may contact us at the Digital Security Authority via email or via phone. Once again, I would like to thank our partners, Dr. Danido, Dr. Hajikristofi. If anyone would like to have any questions, pose any questions, or set any issues forth, please do so.
Let me just thank the DSA and all the personnel of the DSA that basically assisted with this effort. Thank you for the invitation, and I hope that people will take cybersecurity awareness more seriously as we proceed. And maybe in the years to come, Cyprus will be classified higher in terms of digital security as opposed to the current status. And I won't say what the current status is.
We have a question. If I may read out from Adam. Thank you, Adam. The question is, what are some of the major obstacles as to why companies do not consider benefits of cybersecurity mitigation besides return on investment, risking major financial loss?
Shall I answer that? Briefly?
Yes, of course.
So thank you, Adam, for your question. It is one of the major questions that have been part of recent research on cybersecurity with regards to SMEs. As I mentioned earlier, and you also mentioned in your question, the main reason is the return on investment. They don't want to sacrifice a significant amount of money and invest into cybersecurity since they do not see a return in terms of financial return. Secondly, they do not actually value cybersecurity because they have not been yet victims of cyber attacks. So when they are victims of cyber attacks, and it is of course too late by then, they do change their security posture and they invest in cybersecurity a lot more than they did before. So this is the second reason that they do not value cybersecurity and they do not actually realize the impact that a cybersecurity attack could have on their organization. Another reason is obviously something that we find really common in Cyprus, that each individual, but also organizations, do not think that they can be victims of cyber attacks because they don't feel that they have so much information which would be valuable, or that they do not keep personal data of customers that would be valuable for cyber attackers, for hackers to steal, which is again not true because as I said before, every little detail for a customer, every information, either sensitive or not, that you keep in your system should be protected. and it may not be of real value to you, or you may think that it will not be of real value to a hacker, but this is not what dark web shows us. So there are a lot of information about the details and the trades that are made in terms of personal information in dark web, and we must all admit that they are quite staggering. So that is the answer from my part. I don't know if George has anything to add.
Let me add to what Dr. Danidou said here and say that as an indication in terms of awareness for SMEs, there is this notion of basically looking into cyber insurance. Cyber insurance is an insurance that you buy to secure yourself in case there is an attack or there is some form of fine that you need to pay. And so this will be handled by your insurance. As an indication, when I asked the company here in Cyprus how many companies are cyber insured, the answer was that only one. So only one company in Cyprus is cyber insured. So probably we feel at Cyprus that we are invisible, you know. But I think the other component that I wanted to add to what Dr. Danidou was saying was that you may have not suffered from an attack, but we have also the other aspect as well. You have suffered from an attack and you have never realized it, okay? Your data is just out there flowing on the internet. They are just being aggregated. They are just being sold to someone, maybe in India, maybe in China, but you never realized it. And based on statistics, there is a high chance that your company was compromised. That's all. So maybe we can use some of these scare scenarios to encourage business owners to do something about it. I don't know. We'll see how things evolve.
What you mentioned, George, is also directly related to lack of awareness, which was repeatedly mentioned in our presentation. And taking also this point, I would like to mention that lack of awareness and lack of trainings in organizations internally allows employees to become victims of social engineering and other kind of attacks because they do not actually understand that they are victims of such an attack. And as we said, it is really important to proceed into internal trainings in your organizations. And in Cyberdyuc Research Center, we can provide such trainings upon request, and of course we can tailor-make these trainings according to the particular needs of your organization. So if you would like to proceed, or if you would like to have a chat on what we offer, here you can find all the details about us, telephone numbers, emails, the email for Cyberdyuc, the websites, and different ways that you can reach to us.
So let me add to that, of course you can get trained, right? But the other component that should happen after training is also important. The component of how do you make sure your employee is doing what he's supposed to be doing. He knows the regulations. Is he following the regulations? Is he going with the various policies as they are set? Okay. So someone needs to be there to check. Someone needs to be there to control this. So this is something that we all need to keep in mind.
And also, this is part of cybersecurity governance in organizations that always should originate from the top management to the lower levels of the organization. So this is also related to Adam's question before, that if the CEOs do not value cybersecurity, they do not invest, and since the heads of the organization do not value that, this does not go down to the organization. All policies, procedures, etc., and the money that should be invested in cybersecurity would originate from the CEO. And this will also cultivate a cybersecurity culture in every organization. So all of these are related to what we call cybersecurity governance. Also, in case that you would like to learn more on this, you can subscribe to our Master in Cybersecurity, which is really interesting. And you can become yourselves cybersecurity experts and serve as such in your organization.
Let me proceed. I think that Adam has posted another question here. Is that okay, Jana? Can I?
Yes, I don't have access to the chat, so yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Do you want me to read out the question, George?
I can read it. GDPR considers privacy by design. Is this the general sentiment for cybersecurity across the executive class within private companies in Cyprus? Can you clarify what you mean by general sentiment, meaning that something that they pay attention to, or something that they feel that they want to do to some level, but not exactly? Adam? Let me just proceed till Adam responds and say that the idea of privacy by design is this notion of actually introducing into the different technologies that company has these mechanisms that will provide privacy. Okay, for example, well, I'm not sure they are following. Based on my experience with a number of companies, not a lot of companies. Okay, I'm not sure that the focus is on this notion of security by design, meaning that they change the operations and functions of the different systems so as to provide security by design. For example, security by design is when you want to get basically consent from a user, you introduce checkboxes. So this is security by design. You say someone has to check this and this and this to be able to proceed, otherwise not. Okay. So you change the way the technology works. So it's built into. Now, and the same with pseudonymization, the idea that you hide the identities of individuals. Based on what I've seen, the first focus of companies, correct me, Anna, if I'm wrong, is policies. They want to be correct in terms of the procedures and policies as far as the company is doing. And as far as security by design, there is this difficulty of understanding what the data is, how it's being processed, how it's mapped to the various functions. So the process of actually checking the data, of executing a data processing data impact assessment, it involves this notion of understanding where the data flows and how it's being accessed. And many people within company, they don't have a holistic view in terms of what the data is or where the data is flowing. So this creates problems in terms of, okay, what do we do? So the answer is mainly on the notion of policies and less on the, let's analyze the flows and analyze the risk based on the flows and restrict access control based on the flows. Mind you that the people that typically handle this may not have enough knowledge on security, may not have knowledge on the security mechanism within a company, may not have enough knowledge on the data that is being handled. And sometimes there is this notion of hiding everything, this notion of secrecy. Okay, there is the notion of separation between departments. You have the sales department, you have the computers department, and they do not, and I've seen this, they do not talk to each other, so they don't communicate. And I've had scenarios where the IT administrator would not give me an idea of the flows of data within his company, simply because of this notion of privacy. So I was there to help, and I was not given an idea of the flow so as to assist. So there are various dynamics that we need to take into account. But as far as GDPR, my belief is that not everything is being done to the level it's supposed to be done. I tried to answer it as best as I could. I'm not an expert on DPO, but I answered based on my experience.